Hi everybody, this is Dr. Eliana Aaron, Director of EMA Care. I hope everyone is doing well and taking care of themselves. Today I'm going to answer a few questions and explain, based on one of those questions, I'm going to actually explain a little bit of a different analysis. So the first question is, has there been any change in thinking about disinfecting groceries and takeout food? For example, is it still advised to disinfect all packages, wash all fruit before putting it away, etc.? If food is a concern, how come it's okay to get something like sushi which can't be heated? So food has never been an issue with coronavirus. I don't think there's been any case of anyone getting coronavirus from food. It is not a stable surface for the virus, and therefore that has not been a problem. Throughout this pandemic, people have been cooking food and making food for other people, getting takeout, getting deliveries. So food is not a problem. This virus does not attach to the gastrointestinal tract. That's not how it's transmitted. It's transmitted through the respiratory tract. So I want to just make sure that's clear. The issue that we have been discussing all along is the packaging. The reason why packaging is a problem is because people touch things when they pack, when they put things on shelves. I have seen absolutely terrible hygiene. I have not yet been to a store that has had proper mask regulations among all the workers. I have not yet been to any store that has proper glove regulations, and glove regulations means you can't be on your phone. If you're on your phone, you have to wash your hands. Phones are not clean. So when we look at what the purpose of this was, it's that when you are bringing something that other people have handled, and we know that surfaces are a problem for this, and I've seen lots of people coughing and sneezing and you know, with absolutely no cough hygiene all over products that people are going to take home. Now, this is just a logical thing. There is no objective evidence to prove that if I touch this package and it has COVID, and then I touch my mouth or my eyes, that I'm going, or my nose, that I'm going to get the disease. However, these are vectors. These are things that can carry the disease for up to 3 to 5 days, depending on the research. Some types of packaging, such as cardboard, only hold the virus for 24 hours. So this is a logical thing to do, and that's why there are a lot of people who are doing it. The CDC says you don't have to, but you can. And what we've also known is that sometimes these bodies are behind. So, you know, remember at the beginning, they were telling people you don't have to wear a mask. And now, of course, we know that a mask is one of the things that's protecting us here. So the answer is, as long as there's coronavirus, it's just a good thing to take any object that people have handled and to bring it into your house and make sure it's clean when you put it on your shelves. That just makes sense to me. So basically, when we are, you have to think about this logically. I've heard of people who are opening cereal packaging. That makes no sense because cereal comes in a plastic container, a plastic bag that's sealed inside a cardboard box. Now, that cereal was not packaged yesterday. That cereal was not packaged even 5 days ago. And that cereal was probably imported. So when you get things that are packaged and with multiple packages on the inside, anything that's on the inside, unless it was packaged right then today, you don't have to sterilize that, okay? So opening up packages of cereal and having loose cereal flying all over the house, no, that's called going a little too far. We had a delivery of some electronic items over Passover, and a lot of these electronic items that are clearly produced and made not on the spot, but rather they're on shelves for a long time. The outside box, you know, we just sort of wiped it down, but the inside, all the different devices that come in plastic and bubble wrap, I wasn't worried about those. Those were not packaged in Asia and imported yesterday. No. So I do recommend continuing to do that. I think that you can eat takeout food. I think it's a good idea to clean your hands well when you handle outside food, even if you decide you're not going to deal with packaging and you're not going to clean the packaging. It's a good idea. It's actually recommended to wash your hands thoroughly with soap and water before and after handling any food or any items that have come from the outside, and actually before and after you eat anyway. So if you have a pizza box that was on your table, eat the pizza, throw the box out, and then wipe down the table. That just makes sense, and it's also good hygiene, and we know hygiene is one of the keys here. So question number 2. Why are South Korea and Singapore not included in the charts? This is from Jerusalem. Her husband works in India. He's been to Singapore a few times, and that's great. I've been to Singapore a few times too. I love that city, very safe, very clean, and it's really one of my favorite cities, except for the humidity. However, the reason why the charts that I normally provide do not include those 2 countries is because they have less cases than Israel. I've been selecting countries with the same or more cases as Israel because there are many countries in the world, and I am not going to make graphs for everybody. However, I decided that we were going to play around. I'm just going to show you what I did. I played around with some of this because I know that some of these Asian countries that got hit very early were able to manage very, very well. Some of them are having some resurgence now, and we have to see how that works. But what we have seen is that they're doing very well, but they also have not that many new cases, although there are these resurgences, but there was a pause. They were at the top of the list a couple months ago, or even a month and a half ago, and they've just been sliding down the list because they don't have that many new cases anymore. So when we're looking at the raw data, I was analyzing countries who have the same or more cases. So I'm going to share my screen so you could take a look at how well these countries have done. And for the most part, they've done super well. So you can see here, this is an analysis of Spain, France, the US, and Italy. We know that those countries are not doing particularly well. This is active critical cases. And it's actually not deaths. This is the wrong chart, but it's active critical cases per million population. So what you can see here very clearly is that Israel is less than the US and the European countries, which is what we're seeing in the charts, but we are more than Singapore, Japan, Korea, who haven't until very recently had any upticks for quite a while. And they manage their cases very well. So that's very good. Now, I wanted to look at this in different ways. So I actually looked here at COVID deaths per million. I'm leaving it in the same order so you can understand how the chart is so very different. And what you see here is, well, the US, for example, deaths per million, they've had a lot of deaths in the US, but what we do know is that it's a very big country, so it takes a lot of people to get to even a 1% death rate. And so we're seeing here that, again, Israel is less than Europe, but more than Asia. Asia had, these 3 countries in Asia have done very well, and they're all developed countries with good reporting. So we don't have to worry, like in Cambodia or Vietnam, that there's not going to be adequate testing, not going to be adequate reporting. A lot of places that are very removed from decent healthcare. I've been to some of those places myself. So this is a fair representation of developed countries, let's say. And if you look at case fatality rate again, Israel has a lower case fatality rate than either Japan or Korea, but of course not Singapore. Singapore had very few deaths. which is really impressive. Singapore is a very interesting country that is a democratic country, but they have a lot of very highly restrictive regulations on a normal basis. That's the country where you can get a fine if you chew gum in public. So they did really well with their mortality rates. And then if you look here, the tests per million, and we've been looking at those numbers too, in these same countries, Israel is still the best in terms of the number of tests per million. But what this also tells me is that just tests alone is not enough for countries to necessarily get their numbers under control. What we're talking about here is a combination of different things. If you think about the Asian countries, Japan, South Korea, and Singapore had, as soon as they started having, unfortunately, many times they waited until they started having higher numbers before they did a close down, but then they did a really tight close down and they shut their borders. All three of these countries were countries on the list of countries that Israel did not allow in, which is interesting, and that includes Italy actually too. And so people are saying it's about the social distancing and the regulations and also the testing. And what we're seeing here is Israel has the highest test rate per population of these countries and of the countries I normally show you. However, that's not enough. There has to be the social distancing. So what we see in Asia is we had a lot of social distancing and a bit less testing. Japan, relative to their huge population, had a very low rate of testing. And then in Europe, they had decent amounts of testing for the most part. France less so, but certainly Italy and Spain had decent rates of testing. The US has a good rate of testing relative to its size, really. But what we are seeing is that they did not have that social distancing regulation under tight management, and that led to a lot of problems. We've seen that in Sweden, we've seen that in other European countries, and that's why the European countries have not been doing particularly well in terms of their numbers, the developed countries. So I wanted to just show you this to you. I'm not trying to avoid these countries, it's just that the threshold for the screening that I was showing you is countries that have at least the amount that Israel has. Israel has stabilized, so we'll see if they get squeezed into our models as we move forward, but they are doing well for the most part, and we'll keep an eye on it, okay? I hope everyone's doing well, staying safe, and staying home.